My parents took my life savings to fund my sister's lavish wedding in Europe, then begged for forgiveness after I made 3 calls. Before we continue, please subscribe the channel and comment down where are you watching from for unlimited love. I opened the banking app while waiting for my lunch order. No real reason, just habit. But the second the balance loaded, I forgot where I was. I forgot the crowd, the noise, even my own breath. My account, the one I'd built slowly since I was 17, showed 0. Not a cent, not a decimal. At first, I thought it was a glitch. I backed out, refreshed. Still 0. I scrolled through the transaction history, eyes catching on a sudden transfer, $72,000, swept out in a single motion. No 들으셨진. No warning. Just gone. Confusion was replaced by cold, creeping understanding. I knew that account had no joint access. No shared names. Just me. But there was only one group of people who knew it existed, who knew the exact number down to the last dollar. My parents. I didn't call them. I didn't send a message. I didn't ask why. Instead, I walked out of the cafe, crossed the street without hearing the honk of a car that swerved to avoid me, and sat on a bench in front of the courthouse, where it was quiet enough to think. The silence wasn't for shock. It was calculation. I made the first call at 1:24 p.m. The fraud department rep picked up on the second ring. I gave them everything. Account details, the transfer date, confirmed I hadn't authorized any transactions. When they asked if I recognized the recipient, some fake-named holding account, I told them yes. I gave my parents' full names, socials, their address. The agent paused, unsure if I really wanted to file a fraud report against my own family. I confirmed it. I meant every word. Second call was to a lawyer I had bookmarked months ago during a research spiral on financial protection and family exploitation. She answered with a calm, collected tone, and within minutes, we were reviewing the framework for filing theft charges and setting up an emergency legal claim to freeze any assets they might have tried to hide. She asked me one question at the end of the call. Do you want them to know this is happening now or find out when the papers arrive? I told her, let the papers speak. Third call went to France, to the wedding planner's office where a cheery assistant answered. I asked for the head planner by name. Once she was on the line, I told her that the funds used to pay for everything from the estate rental to the custom floral arches were stolen, that legal proceedings were underway, that I'd already notified the financial institutions tied to her vendors. Within the hour, cancellations began. The villa backed out first, followed by the carriage company. Designer dressmakers don't gamble on scandal, and neither do caterers who service aristocratic clients. What had been scheduled to look like a dream ceremony was, piece by piece, stripped back into dust. That evening, my phone started lighting up. First texts, then voicemails, then calls, over and over. My mother was sobbing in one. She kept saying they didn't think I'd ever find out, that they just needed a little help, that it was all for appearances, that the families in Europe expected a certain image, and my sister couldn't be the only American bride arriving without grandeur. My father's messages were quieter but heavier. He begged, not just for forgiveness, but for me to stop, said they'd pay me back, said it was all meant to keep the family name strong, to give my sister the life they thought she deserved. He used the word sacrifice, as if robbing me blind was a noble act. And my sister? Radio silence. Not a word, not even a thanks. They hadn't invited me. I'd learned about the wedding through an aunt's offhand comment a month ago. No ticket. No mention. Nothing. I was invisible to them until their world started burning. By the next morning, they were outside my apartment. I didn't let them in. I watched them from the peephole, my father pacing, my mother collapsed against the door like a bad stage play. They came back the next day. Not just my parents this time, my uncle, my cousin Rachel, even some family friend I barely remembered, all lined up like some intervention gone wrong. Their plan, clearly thrown together in panic, was to overwhelm me into backing down. It didn't work. They knocked, rang the bell, even called through the door. I sat on the couch and watched the camera feed on my phone. My mother was in full makeup, like she thought this was a press conference. My father, less composed, paced with his phone out, probably trying to reach someone who might convince me to drop the charges. I still didn't open the door. An hour later, they left. I thought it was over, until I got to work. My boss met me in the hallway with a look I hadn't seen before. Concern, maybe pity. He asked if everything was okay at home. I asked why. He said a woman had called earlier claiming I was mentally unwell and going through something traumatic, and that I might start lashing out at people around me. I didn't need to guess who made the call. I opened my email. 3 messages from HR. One was a form to sign if I needed a mental health day. Another reminded me of our company's wellness resources. The third was flagged urgent. Report of family dispute affecting workplace. They were trying to sabotage my job. I went to the security team and requested call recordings. Once they verified my ID, they played the audio. My mother's voice came through clear, measured, even sympathetic. She described me as emotionally unstable and not in the right frame of mind. She didn't ask for anything directly, just hinted I was becoming unpredictable. She was laying the groundwork to discredit me. I emailed my lawyer with the audio file. She responded within 20 minutes. Her words were brief. We escalate now. We filed for a formal restraining order against both of my parents that same day. It was granted provisionally, enough to legally block them from approaching my apartment or workplace. That night, they parked across the street. They sat in the car for hours. I stood by the window, watching the outline of my father's headlight-washed profile as he waited, doing nothing, saying nothing. My mother stared at the building, as if she believed I'd finally break and come running down. The next morning, I checked my mail. A handwritten letter. No envelope. Folded like a high school note. It was from my sister. She wrote 2 pages, front and back. Not a single apology. She blamed me for humiliating her, for turning a once-in-a-lifetime moment into a disaster. She claimed I owed her that wedding after everything she sacrificed for me growing up. Her examples? That time in middle school when she gave me a ride to soccer practice. Or how she let me borrow a jacket once when mine ripped. Apparently, those were lifelong debts. At the bottom of the second page, she told me I'd ruined her marriage before it even started. No signature. Just her name written in block letters, as if she wanted it to look official. I tore the note in half. Not out of anger, just disinterest. 2 days passed. Then the police came. They weren't hostile, just tired. They showed up with questions, said a complaint had been filed by my parents about misappropriated funds. I showed them the account ownership documents. They saw my name on every line, saw the fraud report filed under my identity. One officer asked, "You sure you want to take this all the way?" I looked him straight in the eye. They stole from me, then tried to ruin me. He didn't press after that. But the game changed. That same night, the wedding guests started reaching out. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years suddenly messaged me like we were close. Some asked what really happened. Some accused me outright of destroying the family. A few said they understood but begged me to settle it privately. The whispers started piling into digital noise, group chats, social media posts, passive-aggressive status updates. One cousin posted a story of the wedding venue's cancellation notice with the caption, "When selfish people can't let others be happy." The comments were worse. My name came up. Screenshots circulated. Stories got twisted. I was painted as the bitter, resentful sibling who couldn't stand my sister's joy. I said nothing, because while they were spinning narratives, my lawyer was building one backed by law. We subpoenaed financial records, pulled security camera footage from the bank, proved the transaction originated from my mother's laptop. We even uncovered a second attempt to move money from my emergency account, which had failed due to a password change I'd made the week prior. The case was solid. The evidence undeniable. Then came the settlement offer. My parents, through a new lawyer they scrambled to hire, proposed paying me back the full amount, on the condition that I dropped all charges, ended the restraining order, and signed a non-disclosure agreement barring me from speaking about it ever again. I declined. They tried again the next day. Same offer, more desperation in the tone. I refused. Not because I needed vengeance, but because silence was how they'd kept control for years. Guilt, obligation, appearances, those were their tools. I wasn't playing along anymore. The third offer came from my sister. She showed up unannounced outside my building. Security called up. I told them to send her away. They said she wasn't moving, just standing there holding a folder. I looked through the camera feed. She looked thinner, disheveled, her dress creased like she hadn't changed in a day. Out of curiosity more than compassion, I went downstairs. She didn't speak at first, just held out the folder. Inside, screenshots of texts between our parents and some wedding guests, messages trashing me, lying about why I'd taken legal action, twisting the truth into something ugly. She'd highlighted the worst ones. "I thought you should see what they really said about you," she muttered. I asked why she was showing me now. She hesitated. Then, because I didn't know they were saying it to everyone, I took the folder, didn't thank her, just turned and walked back inside. That night, my lawyer added defamation to the list of claims. And suddenly, everything went quiet. No more messages. No more knocks. The online posts slowed. It was like someone had flipped a switch. They were retreating, but not because they felt guilty. It was damage control. But the silence didn't mean peace. The wedding was officially called off that weekend. The groom's family backed out after reading the legal documents tied to the ongoing fraud case. Turns out, they weren't thrilled about tying their name to a scandal that could end in court. His parents withdrew funding. The engagement ring was returned. My sister moved back in with our parents. They stayed indoors mostly. I heard from neighbors they kept the curtains shut for days. My uncle stopped visiting. Rachel posted a picture of a family dinner, my place at the table empty. The damage wasn't temporary. It had changed the structure, shifted the weight. The hierarchy they built, the one where I was quiet, dependable, invisible, collapsed the moment I spoke up. And still, no apology came. Not a real one, just more blame. More silence, wrapped in forced civility. The kind where they don't say anything bad to your face, but the coldness in their voice makes it clear you're the villain of their story now. I woke up to a knock at the door again. This time, I opened it. But not because I was willing to talk, because I knew who it was and I wanted it over. My father stood there, not with rage, not with shame, just a face that had aged a decade in a week. He didn't speak right away. He handed me an envelope. Legal documents. A formal request for mediation. He said they couldn't handle the pressure of court, of lawyers, of the constant freezing of assets. Said their accounts were flagged, their credit lines locked, and their retirement fund was now under audit because of suspicious transactions tied to my case. I stood in the doorway and listened. Then I asked him one thing. Why me? He looked confused. Why was it okay to take mine? His mouth opened, but no words came. Just a pause, long, dry, and hollow. Then he muttered something about expectations, how I always seemed like the strong one, how I didn't need the help like she did. I let him finish. Then I told him I'd speak to my lawyer and closed the door. 3 days later, the mediation took place in a bland, windowless room downtown. My attorney sat beside me. Across the table, my parents and their counsel waited like defendants trying not to show it. No small talk. No briefings. We went straight into it. Their side opened with a revised offer. Full repayment, within 90 days, no interest, plus an additional 10% for the trouble. In return, they wanted me to drop the fraud case and sign a confidentiality agreement. I declined again. My lawyer laid out a counter. Full repayment with penalties, legal fees covered by them, removal of defamatory content posted by family members under their instruction, and a formal letter of admission signed by both of them acknowledging the theft. Their lawyer looked stunned. My father looked like he was trying to hold back a reaction. My mother spoke for the first time in the meeting. That would destroy us. I didn't flinch. I told her, "You did that yourselves." They asked for a short break. They stepped outside. When they returned, they accepted. Paperwork was signed. The agreement was binding. They had 60 days to fulfill every term or the case would proceed to trial. They didn't hug me. They didn't say goodbye. They just left. That evening, my phone buzzed. It was a notification that the first payment had already landed. 40,000 transferred in a lump sum. I read the deposit details twice, then turned the phone over and went on with my night. I didn't need to celebrate. I wasn't happy. I wasn't angry. I was just free. The second week, the apology letter arrived. Not handwritten, not sentimental, just typed, signed, and stapled. It read like a document written by someone under pressure. They admitted to the unauthorized transfer, confirmed they used the funds without consent, and stated it would never happen again. It didn't include the word sorry once. I sent a scanned copy to my lawyer, then stored the original in a folder I didn't label. The rest of the payments arrived without delay. Week by week, they paid off the full amount, then the penalties, then the legal fees. The bank closed the investigation after full restitution. The fraud alert was lifted. My accounts were unfrozen. I was back in control, but something had shifted. The silence between us became permanent. Not hostile, just final. My sister moved out of my parents' house and into a one-bedroom condo in a part of town where no one knew her name. Her fiancé, now ex, cut all ties with the family. Rumors swirled about why he left, but I knew the truth didn't matter to them anymore. They had no wedding, no story to show off, no pictures to post. Just loss. The family circle tightened without me. Cousins stopped texting. Holiday invites vanished. Group chats went quiet. I was no longer part of the script. They rewrote it without me and acted like I'd removed myself. But I didn't feel isolated. I felt clear. I'd spent years doing what was expected, taking the quiet route, being understanding, forgiving too easily. But the moment I drew a line, they revealed what they really valued. Not connection, not trust, just appearance. Weeks passed, then months. I found a new job, better pay, better hours, new team. I used part of the money to enroll in a certification course I'd delayed for years. The rest I moved to an account no one knew existed. Secured, protected. The restraining order remained in place until it expired 6 months later. I didn't renew it, not because I trusted them, but because I knew they'd never come back. Not like before. One night in late fall, I ran into my cousin Rachel at a gas station. She looked surprised, but didn't walk away. She asked if I hated them. I said no. Then she asked if I missed them. I said no again. We stood there, under flickering lights, and she looked like she wanted to say something else. Maybe an apology. Maybe nothing. In the end, she just nodded and walked off. That was the last time I saw anyone from that side of the family.